to the weekly Rushes, your rushed rush through the latest news in the world of movies and streaming. So I'm afraid we're leading with Will Smith and that slap. Yeah, that slap. It was a loud slap, wasn't it? So the verdict has come in from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and they've decided that Will Smith should have a 10-year ban. He did kind of neuter whatever decision they were going to arrive at by resigning early, so it was a preemptive strike in a way. But they have banned him for 10 years. What does that mean? Basically, he can't go to the Academy Awards for 10 years. He can't go to any screenings or events organised by the Academy. But this is the statement that the board announced. The board has decided for a period of 10 years from April the 8th, Mr. Smith shall not be permitted to attend any Academy events or programmes in person or virtually. Now, Will Smith very sort of briefly stated after this was announced, "I accept and respect the Academy's decision." Maybe he feels he's already apologised, maybe he feels enough's been said, maybe he felt if he said any more it would be misread, I don't know, but it was quite a curt, short response. So he won't be allowed to hand out the Best Actress Award next year, which is the traditional way in which it works. If you win Best Actor, you then are the presenter of the Best Actress Award. He can be nominated in future years, which leaves us in a potentially odd situation where he could be nominated for an Oscar, win it, but not be there to accept it, and perhaps not even able, virtually, to say that he's accepted it. I wonder if Jada Pinkett Smith would be allowed to pick it up for him. There's a curious thought. But one of the other kind of outcomes of this slap is that various projects featuring Will Smith are beginning to creak a little bit as to whether they're actually going to happen. Netflix and Apple were sort of bidding and competing for Will Smith's memoir, which he published last year, in which he talked a lot about his upbringing, his alcoholic father, thoughts and fears around suicide and mental health issues, and some stuff about Jada Pinkett Smith and obviously their relationship. Well, Netflix and Apple TV have withdrawn their interest and withdrawn their bids in a bidding war to serialise or turn the memoir into a film. And both streamers have said that their plans are to relocate the funds that were going to be applied to the Will Smith project to other original ideas and projects that feature other black actors. So you can see there's a kind of creative move away from Will Smith happening in Hollywood already, which kind of once again suggests that, you know, to those people who are saying it was staged, it was crisis actors, that's right. It's hard to believe that that's the case given the fallout that's happening for Will Smith's career. There were also plans for a fourth Bad Boys film. They've been put on hold, and Netflix project Fast and Loose has also been put on ice. So, it's not looking good for Will Smith. So he needs to keep his head beneath the parapets. And of course, everyone is still waiting for Chris Rock to talk publicly about it for the first time. Harrison Ford. You don't see Harrison Ford do much these days, do you? Apart from the constant return to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He's notoriously difficult to get to sign up to new projects. Well, he's signed up for his first major TV series role. And he's starring in a series called Shrinking, which is from some of the creative team that gave us or brought us Ted Lasso, which is that series about an American who runs a British football team. We started it. I quite enjoyed it. Nadia didn't. But lots of you guys really like that series. This new show called Shrinking also stars Jason Segel, and it follows some therapists within a practice. Segel's character is a grieving therapist who breaks the rules and tells his clients exactly what he thinks. And Harrison Ford's character, I presume, is one of the other sort of practicing psychiatrists within the firm, if you like. He plays Dr. Phil Rhodes, who specialises in CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, a fiercely independent chap. He's recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's, which forces him out of his comfort zone, says the blurb, as he grapples with intrusive friends, his estranged family and his legacy. So, it could play to his strengths. He's quite he's getting old, isn't he, Harrison Ford? So the idea that he's playing perhaps a psychiatrist at the end of his days will suit him. Of course, we can look forward to seeing him in the fifth instalment of Indiana Jones, which is directed by James Mangold. That will be his next appearance. But that's a new series starring Harrison Ford for Apple TV. And of course, Apple have had some success already with a show about psychiatrists and shrinks in the series that The Shrink Next Door, I think it was called, starring Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd. Now, we've made no secret of the fact that we are enormous fans of the Robert Downey Jr. incarnation of Sherlock Holmes. Huge fans. Also starring Jude Law, also starring Jared Harris. We like the style of it, we like the look of it. It's directed by Guy Ritchie. I haven't particularly been a fan of Guy Ritchie's output over the years, but I do think the Sherlock Holmes films are particularly powerful. and strong and innovative and original. Well, HBO Max, who have done something similar with the Suicide Squad with a spin-off called Peacemaker, are planning to do something similar with the Batman with a spin-off called The Penguin, are doing a similar thing with Robert Downey Jr. working as an executive producer on a spin-off series for HBO Max. The plan looks like they're going to be spinning off, sadly, with none of the characters we like. They're going to be taking spin-off characters which potentially are going to be found or set up and established in Sherlock Holmes 3, the film, which is currently being discussed with, as involving the director Dexter Fletcher, and obviously the old cast being brought back to the table. But there's no decision on when that will be. It was repeatedly delayed due to the pandemic and COVID, so we're still waiting to hear when the third movie will greenlight. And I'm presuming and assuming that perhaps these spin-off characters will be established within that film. There's no talk about which characters they'll be, but Team Downey, which is him and his wife, they'll be producing. And of course, there's a long tradition of Sherlock Holmes turning into TV series. When you think of the fact that Benedict Cumberbatch played him, Nanny Di, you're a big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock. I couldn't get into it. At all. And of course, there was Elementary, which was the American version starring Johnny Lee Miller. So I think this is a potentially exciting thing, but it's all dependent on who are those characters and who are the actors playing them. Bob Odenkirk, the star of Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, etc. He made the brilliant film Nobody, which if you haven't seen, please check it out. Bob Odenkirk is going to be back despite his heart attack. He's not letting up on his working schedule. He's going to be starring in an adaptation of Richard Russo's book called Straight Man. It's a kind of midlife crisis tale set in a college. And get this for the blurb that they're releasing for this. And of course, as I say, it's based on a book. In the course of a single week, Bob Odenkirk's character will have his nose mangled by an angry colleague, imagine his wife is having an affair, wonder if a curvaceous co-worker is trying to seduce him. He'll threaten to execute a goose, I guess that's a pinch of the bottom, on local television, all whilst he comes to terms with an aggravating, disruptive father and the failure, they say, of certain body functions. I can only imagine that must be down in the men's nether region. So a curious one. Potential for comedy, potential for grief, potential for stress. So that's Bob Odenkirk starring in Straight Man, an adaptation of the Richard Russo book. A24, that fabulous powerhouse of indie film and indie television, has signed up Lily Rose Depp, obviously Johnny Depp's daughter, and Renata Rainsby. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but she was the star of The Worst Person in the World. And interestingly, an actress who had given up on her acting career was dragged out of almost early retirement and has had huge success with The Worst Person in the World. Do check out our review. It's elsewhere on the channel. Well worth a watch. Don't be put off by the fact that it's a Norwegian subtitled film. Doesn't matter. Get over that. You'll love it. This is a new film. It's the second film by the director Joe Talbot, who gave us The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Again, another quirky, original film. Really, really good. Do check it out if you can. This is his second film, and it's called The Governesses, and it's based on Anne Serra's novel of the same name. And it follows three what they call rebellious governesses who sort of cause havoc in the house within which they work. They kind of ignite passions in the boys that they care for, and they even ignite interest in the couple, the bohemian couple, who are their bosses. So I think it's going to be a bit saucy, it's going to be a bit suggestive. I didn't realise that Lily Rose Depp has been nominated for 2 Caesar Awards across the time, the French Oscars, if you like. She's next to be seen in the HBO series The Idol, alongside The Weeknd. So I think this promises to be kind of intriguing, interesting. I'm wondering whether it might be a bit like The Favourite, with 3 saucy, suggestive and teasing governesses. Big news over at Disney. Obviously, they've been caught up in the Don't Say Gay fiasco, having temporarily cut a gay kiss from Lightyear, the animated prequel story, I believe, of Buzz Lightyear. Lots of kind of protests and upset by Pixar and Disney employees about that, but sort of pulling against that and pushing in the opposite direction. Disney have cast their first trans actress to play a cis character, and this actress is Talisa Garcia, who's a British actress, and she's going to be she's going to be featuring, she's not starring, she's only in 1 episode, but she's going to be featuring in Willow. It's a spin-off of the 1980s fantasy classic, and it's it's classic sort of adventure fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff, Lord of the Rings type stuff, as a princess brings together a party of adventurers to go and rescue her twin brother. It looks like Talisa Garcia plays a queen in one of the episodes, but it's major news that this is a speaking part for the first trans actress. And of course, you know, you could argue that whilst, yes, Disney has been hit with this sort of controversy around the Lightyear kiss, they were also responsible for casting one of the first gay superhero characters with Brian Tyree Henry in The Eternals that was released last year. I didn't think it was a great film, but I think that you've got to give them credit where credit's due. You know, first gay superhero and first trans actor employed within a series for Disney+. We talked about this briefly on our Popcorn Junkies Instagram account. Angela Bassett, star of American Horror Story, Oscar-nominated actress for What's Love Got to Do With It, where she played Tina Turner. She's joining Millie Bobby Brown, yes, she of Stranger Things, and Enola Holmes, for which they're shooting Enola Holmes 2, which is going to be exciting. Angela Bassett's joining Millie Bobby Brown in a film called Damsel, and again, this is a sort of damsel in distress. This is the blurb runs: a princess is shocked to discover that she'll be sacrificed to the kingdom's cave dragon after being married to Prince Charming. She must survive long enough until someone comes to her rescue, except no one is coming, so she's probably going to have to fight for herself. We're probably looking at yet another very strong young female character for Millie Bobby Brown. Angela Bassett, of course, is playing Lady Bayford in it. She's the stepmother. Stepmothers generally in sort of fantasy films are kind of a bit malevolent and evil, so could we be seeing an evil Angela Bassett here? Obviously, Bassett is to one of the big castings. Wakanda Forever, the sequel to the original Black Panther. This is kind of weird. This isn't really a film story, but it's a story that kind of snagged my interest, and it's kind of remarkable. Captain America's first comic book, so edition #1 of Captain America, which I think was published in 1941. I think the front cover features Captain America giving Hitler a good smack in the face. Well, it's gone up for auction, and you're not going to believe how much it sold for. Have a guess. Whilst you have a guess, I'm going to have some Diet Ginger Beer. Oh, I love the sharp kick at the back. Oh, yes. It auctioned for a staggering $3.1 million. Mum, why did you chuck my Thor comics away from the bottom drawer of the chest of drawers in my room? Why? You claim you didn't, but you did. They just went. Oh, imagine what must have been in there, what joys. It's just short of the record of $3.6 million that was set in 2014 for Spider-Man's first appearance. So if you've got any, you know, it's well worth going through any old comics that you might have in the loft, or that you might have sort of just knocking about on one of your shelves somewhere. #1 issues have traditionally gone for lots of money. Superman #1 went for $3.2 million in 2014, and Batman's debut went for $2.2 million in 2021. There's not much detail on this, but there is talk of Beverly Hills Cop 4 moving forward, and it does beg the question that we always ask: should we not leave these 80s sort of franchises alone? Beverly Hills Cop 3 wasn't good, Beverly Hills Cop 2 was alright, and Beverly Hills Cop was good because Eddie Murphy just lifted it slightly head and shoulders above the standard cops fare. The 4th film in the series is coming to Netflix. As I say, there's no discussion yet as to when it's going to happen, but Jerry Bruckheimer is back in the producing seat, and Eddie Murphy is being talked about reprising his role as Axel Foley. And let's not forget that wonderful do 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 Axel F by Harold Faltermeyer. Noomi Rapace and Jonathan Banks. Noomi Rapace, of course, from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, more recently seen as the mother of a child with a lamb's head in Lamb, and Jonathan Banks, who you'll know from Breaking Bad. They're starring in a sort of space-orientated, I'm not entirely sure if it's sci-fi, but space-orientated new series called Constellation, and this is also coming to Apple TV. Apple TV are really upping their ante. They've also just, out of interest, commissioned a second series of Severance, which in Nadia's absence this weekend, I'm going to be sitting down and completing season 1. But let me read the blurb around her character. Rapace stars as Jo, an astronaut who returns to Earth after a disaster in space, but discovers that key parts of her life have disappeared on Earth. Jonathan Banks plays a Nobel Prize winning physicist, and it promises to kind of nibble at the edges of human psychology and all sorts of issues around who we are, what do we become if parts of our history are erased. Noomi Rapace, I think, she's a captivating actress. She's quirky, she's odd, and Jonathan Banks, I'm pleased to see him starring in something new. Now, I'm not au fait with Neil Gaiman's works, but he's incredibly popular. Me and Maddie did start watching American Gods, liked season 1, it was batshit crazy, but season 2 we didn't get on with quite so much. It kind of seemed like it was trying too hard. Neil Gaiman, who also wrote something called Anansi Boys, has cast Whoopi Goldberg as a character called Birdwoman, which I think will be significant to those of you who are Neil Gaiman fans. Anansi Boys, for those of you who don't know, follows a character called Fat Charlie. Apparently it's the nickname that his father gave him, who's a young man who's used to being embarrassed by his father. But when his father dies, he discovers that he was a Nancy, trickster god of stories. So again, we're going sort of the humanistic side of gods. I guess that's how you describe it. But Goldberg is playing one of the villains, or one of the kind of antagonists within the series, called Bird Woman, and she's in charge of kind of really dark birds doing terrible things, I presume. But Goldberg said, "I've been a fan of the book for a long time, and when Neil Gaiman told me it was being brought to the screen, I did everything I could to be part of it, to help make people aware of Anansi and all his magic." It's shooting in Scotland at the moment. It's for Prime Video, though no release date has yet been announced. And finally, Daniel Radcliffe was on the British Radio 4 sort of biography series, Desert Island Discs, in which people talk about their lives and talk about their favourite tunes that have kind of, marked certain points within their lives. And Daniel Radcliffe was on it, and he revealed that he's written a script about the film industry. As he says, people often say, write about what you know. And if you think as a child actor, as Harry Potter, pretty much all he's known is films. He's taken some curious choices in terms of characters that he's played in recent years. Swiss Army Man, we've talked about before. Guns Akimbo, in which he has a couple of guns sort of nailed into his hands. So, he wants to take the director seat. He doesn't want to star in it. And I quite like his reasons for not wanting to star in it. He says, it's partly because I've never done it before, and I wouldn't want to be thinking about acting and directing at the same time. But on a more practical basis, it's because when you direct a film, you have to watch it countless times in the edit, and believe me, you do. You have to have the patience of a saint and the eyes of an eagle or a hawk. And he says, I don't want to watch my face that much, so I'll skip that part. So there you go, Daniel Radcliffe will be directing a movie about the film industry. I think that's something quite interesting, and he's been close up to it for many, many years. And that brings us to Films of the Week, and of course the biggest release of the week is the third instalment in J.K. Rowling's Fantastic Beasts, the series. This is The Secrets of Dumbledore, most notable for Mads Mikkelsen replacing Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. Jude Law is playing Dumbledore, and of course Eddie Redmayne is at the centre of it as Newt. It's the sequel to The Crimes of Grindelwald. You're going to be, I fancy this. I'm probably going to go and see this, though I do worry that unless I saw the first Fantastic Beasts, wasn't brilliantly impressed by it. It was kind of diverting. Missed the second, but I really fancy some escape. I mean, after the last 2 years we've had, I really fancy some J.K. Rowling-esque escape. So I may well check this out, but I'm not entirely sure whether you have to have seen the first two films to really enjoy this one. Another film out this week, which I haven't heard too much about, which is called The Outfit, starring Mark Rylance and Johnny Flynn too. And it features Mark Rylance, oddly, as a tailor on Savile Row. A little bit of the Kingsman going on there, but he kind of discovers, or is aware, that he's a tailor to some Chicago gangsters. And apparently he gets caught up in some of the criminal activities of these gangsters and has to find innovative ways of escaping a grisly fate. I'm getting kind of 44-inch chest vibes, which was an indie British film made, I think about 10 years ago now, but it stars Ray Winston, Ian McShane, who was also in American Gods, the Neil Gaiman series, and John Hurt, as well as Stephen Delane and Tom Wilkinson. It was a brilliant, brilliant film where they're kind of locked into gangsters, locked into a sort of a house, and they're having to deal with a kind of informant or a grass or something like that. It's very funny, it's very violent, and I wonder whether The Outfit could be like that too. And the final film of the week, we like to choose a film every week that's a little bit more esoteric, a little bit more art house, and this is Compartment No. 6, which is a Finnish film. Last week it was a Norwegian film in the form of The Worst Person in the World. This is a Finnish film in which an unlikely sort of pairing or romance of sorts is ignited on a train journey from Finland to Russia between a woman and a miner, but they describe him as a sort of uncouth miner who's not particularly pleasant to her. And then, of course, the film has to turn quite a large corner and somehow bring these two characters together. I think it won the Grand Prix, which is one of the major awards at the Cannes Film Festival. So it's kind of like they describe it almost as the Finnish version of Before Sunrise, the film that starred Julie Delphi and Ethan Hawke, made some years ago. And there you have a rushed rush through the weekly rushes. Tell us what you thought of the stories we've featured, and have yourself a merry film watching weekend.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.